So welcome everyone to the next installment of This Month in Microsoft Teams. My name is Tim Holman. I'm a project manager with Peters & Associates, and one of the areas that I've been tasked with is to become the subject matter expert for Microsoft Teams. And this is a task that is a moving target because the Teams app is just updated so frequently. The This Month in Microsoft Teams series looks at different functionality and features as they are added. And additionally, I'm going to try to add in some tips and tricks where I can. So let's get started with Teams sites. So first question that we've been asked a lot is, why are we using GoToWebinar for a Teams webinar? And it's a complicated answer. So we signed a contract, so we've paid for it. At the time when we were looking for a platform, Teams Live Meetings really wasn't fully developed. Registration is a big part of it. So the GoTo platform has a lot of capabilities around that. And I just saw a webinar today where Microsoft announced some new features for registration for Teams Live Meetings, so that's coming. So a bunch of different reasons. And finally, it's difficult sometimes to demo Teams when you're presenting in Teams. So our agenda today is just an overview of Teams. I like to get everybody just on the same page, just to level set. Our focus is sites. So it's going to be some presentation, and then it's going to be some demo, and then hopefully save some time at the end for some questions. So this is a new slide I added last month, and I just really like it to kind of set the stage for Teams. So imagine a world where you can have your meetings, conduct all your chat, incorporate your phone calls, share files, not eliminate email, but reduce email, maybe handle things in a different way to reduce email. It's great for to-do lists, create dashboards. And so this is the Teams application where you can integrate processes and applications. I just checked again on third-party apps. It's over 900 now. And it's all in a single hub, right? It's all in one application. So a different way of looking at it, right? There's a ton of integration between Outlook and Teams. So your calendar pulls right out of Outlook. Even one of the new features is a way to get attachments out of Outlook into Teams. The creating the sharing content is really kind of our focus for today. That's what Teams sites really are created for. Callings and meetings. We'll do a webinar in the future, and we work with a third party that really has a lot of neat integration with Teams and voice. Chat we've covered already. And then it just helps you connect, right, with people and content across your organization. And this is our implementation wheel. We will walk you through, right, the whole process here. So envisioning, which is kind of the things that we're doing in these webinars. Governance, because you really need to know what content you're sharing and what controls you have before you start putting files up on Teams. And that just leads to adoption and finally implementation. So, there's maybe 100 different settings in the Teams application, and you really need to know what they do before you start rolling it out. So some utilization, right? Why are we talking about Teams? So Teams launched worldwide in 2017, but during the 2021 pandemic, the utilization just skyrocketed. So last October, it was 115 million daily active users. Organizationally, when they launched, they had about 50,000 organizations. In 2020, they hit 500,000 organizations, and 91 of the Fortune 100 companies are currently using Microsoft Teams. So this slide I've had in the last couple presentations, but I've updated it. So previously, I was just reporting on last year. I went ahead and looked at what's been released and then what is projected to be released in Q2. And what you can see is that they're not stopping in terms of developing new features for Teams. The numbers are a little skewed because this is all features across all platforms and all tenants. So there's probably some duplication in here, but you can see they're not slowing down. They're just releasing features like crazy. So there'll be more content coming. So on to the good stuff. And today's focus is team sites. So before we get into it, I just want to say that the intention of this series is not for training. It's really just a high-level overview because there's so much to cover, and it really needs to be tailored to your environment. So I just want to throw out that I can do these same things for your organization, and it would be an overview and a training tailored toward how you're going to implement teams. So when we first started doing our Teams webinar series, we had some framing questions kind of to get the discussion going. And this one I've just really liked because it really shows the capability of Teams and team sites. So how do you enable teamwork across different generations? And not only is this representing generations, but it's really representing technology over time. So, right, a formal letter that came off a typewriter or a face-to-face conversation was how you communicated. Telephone and email and text messaging and social media and mobile. So what's nice is, this slide represents your comfort level with different technologies, but what Teams does is gives you all of these capabilities in one platform. So it can be calling, it can be messaging, it works great on a mobile device. And it's more secure and you have more control over it. So when people started using text messaging to communicate in a business setting, I was never comfortable with it because you have no control over those messages. So you don't know who sent what to whom, if they've read it or not. And so just taking text messaging out of it, but having the same capability with chat, it's just better for your organization. So moving on to, teams and channels. And I like to describe it as a file cabinet. So you can view the Teams site as a file cabinet, the channels as drawers, and then the tabs across the top as folders. So this is what that would look like. So on the left, you see these are sites. And then below the sites, you have channels. And then across the top, you have the tabs. And so what we've done to try to, have conversations about utilization is we've created different use cases. The first one is just some kind of a business process review. It could be, we're rolling out a new website and we need to evaluate every web page. So we're going to put it into a team site and then have an approval process. It could be just getting a proposal approved, right? So every proposal goes into that website and then you have an approval process. Another use case would be an annual event. What's nice about that is that you can keep the content year over year in the same location. So instead of trying to go back, a year later and pull up all those emails about how you did that event the year before, all that information stored in one site. You can do polls, you can organize it in a way that makes it real easy to go back, not only to review what you did, but to roll that content forward for the next year. Project management, it excels at project management. There's actually a whole bunch of project management tools that are third-party apps that work with Teams. So Rike and Trello, there's a whole bunch of them out there, or there's some native things built right in that make it real easy. As an extranet, so an easy way to share information with customers. We've done some work with this where we share calendars and regular scheduled reports that just get automatically emailed to a site. When we first started looking at this, I thought this was just a great way to get started with Teams. It's a two-person team. So it's an executive and their assistant. And they can do a shared OneNote notebook, co-author PowerPoints, share files. So it's just a simple way to get people started, on the team's path, and it's low-hanging fruit. Training, again, a great place to just put all of your training material in one location. It can be tabs that have videos of different training. It could be just files that are stored, or even links to other resources, but all in one location. Marketing, we use it internally for marketing. We do all of our sales sheets, so it's just one place to go if you need to find something. So again, a great way to collaborate on content, and then to store content that's been created. Human resources, so we've done a big SharePoint portal for different human resources forms and workflow, and we're actually developing that into a team site. This one came up because of COVID, and it's more of a less formal way for people to collaborate. So I've created some informal surveys. It's more an informal chat, so like standing around the water cooler. So just having a place for people to hang out because they're remote and they don't have that same interaction. And then finally, board meetings. This is a great one. Built-in calendar, file sharing, so really easy to set something up to have external-facing meetings. So those are, kind of high-level ways of you can use team sites. There's a lot more than that. My next area I want to focus on briefly is what's new. And what I found here is that a lot of the new functionality really isn't in the Teams sites area. It's in a lot of the other peripheral areas, so calling and chat and meetings and those things. But I did find some things that I thought were neat. So first is the ability to pin a document. So this is the Files tab of a channel, and these are all the files below here. And what you can do is, if you want to call attention to something, you can just click the three dots and pin that file, and now it's just drawing attention to it. So if it's something that people you're working on, or people need to reference, and you have a lot of files in that folder, and you can pin a bunch of them actually. So it's a really easy way to call attention to a specific file, and you can unpin it when you're done with it. The next is, now whiteboard isn't new, and whiteboard in Teams isn't new, but you can actually pin a whiteboard, create a tab of the whiteboard. So just like a whiteboard in a meeting room, you've had your meeting, but you want to keep that content there so people could come back and just go to your Teams site and go to that tab, and the notes you had when you were brainstorming during that meeting will be posted right there. So I thought that was pretty neat. I think this is something that people have really wanted for quite a while, and it's a calendar specific to a channel. And so now you can just click the plus button and pick channel calendar. And so anytime you have a meeting where you include a channel in your meeting, that calendar will show right here. And it's always best, right, if you have the ability to schedule a meeting around a team site and a channel to do that, because your chat then is preserved. The files, if you're sharing files, that is all preserved. It makes it really easy for people that missed the meeting to go back and see what happened, and then having a calendar right there just to keep tabs on what's going on is great. Here's something I had mentioned earlier, that integration between Outlook and Teams. So now you have the ability to take an attachment in Outlook and drag and drop it right into a Teams site. So I just popped up the little progress window here just to see what was happening, but just another way to kind of cut down on the email, right? We don't want to be emailing these files back and forth, but I want this attachment so that everyone can see it, so I'll just drag and drop it right in there. So those are the big new features that I saw. And now we just want to talk about some tips. Some of this is more generic, just how to handle teams and sites, and then some of it's some newer options that are out there. So when you create a team, you want to create channels to help focus your discussions. So, right, the team site is the big bucket, the file cabinet, and then the channels are the drawers below. A neat trick, I would say, is the ability to email files right to a channel. So by clicking on the three dots, you can just get the email address. So before, when I had showed dragging and dropping a file, you could grab the email address and just forward that email, and then a folder gets created for attachments, and anytime you email something to that channel, the attachment gets saved in that folder. Before, when I had showed how to pin a document in a file library, you can also, just by clicking the three dots, and this is a newer option, you can turn a file into a tab. So you just click the three dots, make this a tab, and then it looks like this. So now I have a new tab up here, usability, and this is that Word document. And it just, right, again, brings that document to the forefront, makes it easier to find. Again, you could co-author this document. So there's a lot of capabilities around that. When a team site gets created, by default, there is a general channel. And that's one of those things you can't change. So you can't change general, posts, or files. Pretty much everything else is customizable. But so use the general channel, right? Make it an overview of your site. Have people that are new to your team start there, read what has been posted, see what documents are there as a way to onboard themselves to that site. You post announcements for your whole team in the general channel. And then if you're not sure how you want to develop your channel, just start with the general channel and don't add anything else, and see how your site's going to develop. So you can always add channels later, but once you start putting content in there, then it's a lot more work to move it around. So just start with the general channel on your site, and then get people using it, and then see how they want to evolve that site to something more. A recommendation: depending on how you're using your site, you may want to enable moderation. And what does that mean? So, right, for every channel, you have that post. Do you want everyone on that team to be able to post anything they want? Or do you want to have someone that is approving it? So depending on the site and the channel, you may want to set up a moderator. Oh, thought I had another one there. So, and you can just simply through the channel settings, and I can show this in the demo, and it's just an on or off, and then who is going to be moderating that. So hopefully you'll get to the point where you're part of a lot of different Teams sites. Then you'll want to be able to organize them. And so the show hide is super useful. In my demo, I set up a lot of sites that I don't need for any reason. So I hide all of them. So I have a group at the top, which are the ones I can see, and then a group that is hidden. And it's not that they're gone. You just click a drop down and they're all there. The other thing is it's difficult to organize. You can't sort your team sites. You have to manually drag and drop them. So using the drag and dropping and then hiding is going to help you keep the ones that you need right up at the top and make it more manageable. Another area, a tip for channels is notifications. So by default, right, you're probably getting notified on everything. So every post, every reply, every mention, and depending on the type of site, that could be noisy. So you have the ability to go in, you could turn it all off, or you could make it custom. And I think, yeah, here's where you have options. So notify me A new post, no, but I want to. So these are just some of the options you have there. You want to go and look at those, and I can pop that in the demo too. The banner is where it pops up down in the corner, and that's just a Teams notification. So again, just a way to help you manage your content. A tip for working with posts on a team site is use the reply. So just know that that's there. So you have options when you are posting. You can reply to an existing message or you can create a new. And you just want to make sure you know which one you're doing. You don't want to start a new conversation when you're meant to be replying to somebody else's thread. And when you're posting a new message, you can create a subject. So just by clicking the format option down here, that gives you the ability to add a subject, make sure post more concise, easier to follow. And in that same area, when you're creating a new post, this is a new feature, you can post to multiple channels. So if it's an announcement you want to make across a lot of different teams that you're a part of, when you're creating your post, you can click that post to multiple channels option and just pick all the channels you want to show up in. So this one is maybe a preference, but the like button isn't just for sentiment, right? Instead of replying, and this is also going to cut down on that noise you see in channels. If you like something, then it communicates, right? Okay, I got it, without creating more noise. So you're not posting a reply, okay, or I like it, or got it, whatever, and you're not notifying all the people, but they can see, right, by just hitting the thumbs up that message was received. So next month, I'm going to do an overview of governance. Just wanted to throw that out there. It was one of the ones that came up in my survey last month. So I just want to throw that in there here before we jump out and look at some of this stuff in a demo. So I'll pull up my site here, and I'll pull up my notes. So first thing just want to show here is that, right, the ability to pin a file. So let's pin another file. So I just went under the Market 8 project team site in the design channel. I'm under the files tab, and I'm just going to click the 3 dots, and I'm going to make a pin to the top. So now we should have 2 documents that are going to show up here at the top of this. And if I'm done with my usability testing, I can click on that one. Still figuring it out. And I can edit the pin and say unpin. So additionally, I could reorganize them, but I'm done with this document. Now I want to focus on that one. So for my demo site, and click on general. Here's where I added a whiteboard. And so here, and to do that, of course, because I'm demoing, it's going to be slow. All I did was click on the add tab, right? And then I searched for whiteboard. Are we enjoying the spinning circle? I would cancel it if I could.
So while we wait for that, there are actually 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one is there something you can share or guidance we can review to get users to adopt these methods versus users that have only done flat file sharing?
So that's part of our envisioning process, and it's we call it a team's jumpstart. And what I've done in organizations is conducted a session just like this for your employees, and we record it. And it's kind of the first step to get people to use Teams in your organization. So it's an onboarding. So either participate in the training we're doing or watch the video, right? And you're just setting the stage and putting out there, this is the way we're gonna organize our teams, and this is how we're gonna share files. And it gives them the option to see it in practice and ask questions, and right, and it's your environment, your staff, you're comfortable. So that's how I would do it. That's how we've done it with a lot of organizations. I'm not going to wait anymore on the whiteboard. We'll skip to the next thing here. You saw the slide. So mark a project team. You got another question?
Yeah, just one more question. This person said, notice there was a numeric header in the channel or teams. Is that a tip that there is an alphanumeric sorter? So if you know your sequence preferred, you should put a number in front of the name.
So this is something that comes up in my governance discussion, because I think I have down here in my hidden. So unfortunately, Teams will let you name sites with the exact same names. So if you don't have a plan before you start, you can end up with, here's my human resources site, the official HR site. Here are two sites called retail, right? Which what's what? So one thing you can do is, because Teams sites are based on Azure AD groups, you can create a rule that would add a suffix. So you could add a department. Do I have an example of that? Yeah. So the user that created this Project X site is in the R&D department, and my rule adds the suffix R&D underscore and then the name. So that's one way of helping organizing your team sites. The numbering I did because these are my 10 use cases. So I numbered them that way so I could organize them this way. It's an individual thing, right? Because I could change the order right now by just taking this, right, my number 4, and dragging it up. And that's a per user setting, right? You can't control that at the organization level. Again, training and having a discussion about it before you unleash people is going to help control that before, right, they end up with hundreds of sites and it's no naming convention and they don't know what's going on. So here's my calendar that I added, and these are meetings where this channel has been invited to them. Another thing that I had showed earlier, here's the, right, I don't know if we were scheduled for half an hour, 45 minutes a day. I'm just going to keep going. Here's where you can get the email address from a channel. So simple way, right, if I click on that, it's some weird address. You're never going to remember it, right? So it's that number, right, on Microsoft.com. So it's something you wouldn't know what it was, but you can easily find it and then use that in, so you can make it part of a group or something in Outlook to always email files to a channel. So when I had added that file as we're going to use the whole 45 minutes just waiting for things. So again, if I wanted to make this PowerPoint a tab, I could just click the three dots, and then right here is make this a tab. And so then my PowerPoint now would show up. I think one of these is a PowerPoint. I'm not gonna click on it because things are running slow, but so you can add any file that you have as a tab. It's a great way to collaborate on something. So if I look at the settings for, let's do website review. Phase 1. I'm gonna blame it on GoToMeeting. So a couple things. One is the channel notifications. That's one of the things I had showed before, right? So all activity or off or custom. So you have options here. The other thing I want to look at here is managing the channel. And here's where you would configure the moderation. So if I wanted to have this moderated, and then by default, it's the team owners. So I have 2 owners that can manage posts. So now when someone else in the team posts a message, one of those 2 owners would have to approve it. So if we just jump back real quick, and these are the posts. So that's where that would show up. So I did show here all of my hidden teams, right? And again, it's just you click on the 3 dots of the team site and you can hide it. Or if you have one that's hidden, you can show it. And so when I close this down here, so my list gets a lot smaller and it's a lot easier to see the sites that I'm currently active with. Again, it was marquee design. Just want to show where the new versus reply kind of shows up. So if I scroll back up on these posts here, so right off the bat, you can see, right, there's 2 replies here. I even had my bandwidth increase, so I have a gig at home now. So we can view replies. Right, and so then I could reply to that message just by clicking the reply here, and it would be part of this thread versus clicking the new conversation. So just an organization thing, a training thing, so that people understand, right, how they're communicating. Another thing that I showed in my chat one is I pinned this because I thought that this post was important. It just helps it stand out. It makes it easier to navigate. So if I did do a new conversation, here's where I could add a subject by just clicking that format button down there. And that's where my subject line would go. And again, here's my post in multiple channels. So select channels. And this, I mean, is super powerful because if you want to make an announcement across a bunch of different channels, in the past, you would have had to go into each channel and repeat that post. And so now, right, these are all the areas that, right? So you have to be a member and have the right permissions, but I could go into all these and post my announcement in all those channels. And then finally, let's see if we can. going to try to find the like. Maybe because I have a post open, it's not going to let me. Maybe we'll switch to a different channel here. So I guess I would ask if there's any more questions right now. The other thing that I was going to do during this was just walk through some of the use cases and talk about, because each one of these we created and had different ideas in place for what content was being shared on them. So for example, the website review, this is where we're using To Do, which is just a built-in application that you get from Microsoft, and it lets you do a simple task list. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can handle something like this. It can be checkboxes on a card, or it can be buckets where you move tasks across. So for this card, right, it's just it's completed or it's not completed, and these are the people assigned to it. But if you went into it a little further, you could create a checklist. So it is, right? So this checklist just has who the people are that need to complete it, but it could be a list of tasks that need to be done. And they just show on the card. Oh, so once you check them, they disappear. So if I uncheck Bruce and Tim, they'll show back up. So one way of doing a to-do list, another way would be to drag these across different buckets. So it could be you're initiating a task, you're moving it on to another person, or it's another function, and so you could just move these across. You could even have a completed bucket that all the tasks end up in when they're done. So the annual conference, this is where I had done some different polls. So, right, I can go back now and look at last year's event, see what questions were asked. This is using a third-party app called Poly. Microsoft now has the ability to use Forms, which is native, part of Office 365. You can do the same thing basically with Forms. But I can go back and I can look, right, last year, what options did we have? What did we end up picking? I don't have to go track those emails down or find the person in charge. We'd also done, I think I'd done one for theme here. So, big, again, organizing the site so it's an annual conference. We were looking at facilities, food, speaker, sponsor, theme. So these are all my channels. And then within each one of those, there's going to be files, and I have the poll. So, right, taking an idea and then breaking it down, making it more focused. And that team site may sit inactive for 11 months out of the year. But once a year, you're going to go back to it. And I had done things, I think, with just files by having a folder for each year where we put just a simple folder with the year on it. And so all the information we used that year would be in that folder. And so if we were doing it this year, I'd create a new folder, 2021, and maybe I'd go back and pull some documents out of those and move them into that new folder. I'll just keep going. Let's see, under design, we showed that, go to market plan. Here's just an example. I kind of had showed adding a file as a tab. And so this site already has one set up, and it's the go-to-market planner. One of these is a spreadsheet, one of these is a PowerPoint. So not only is it a great way to share information, but it's a great way to collaborate. And because when you put a document in a tab, it's using Office 365 Online. And so you're actually opening up the document in an editable format where you could just, oh, so this is a to-do list. Let's see what might one more. Product brochure. That one is a PowerPoint. But people could co-author this document in this tab. So you don't have to email it, get their updates. They email it back to you. You upload it to the folder. You just go to the team site channel tab and make your changes right there. And if they're working on it, you can see it real time that they're working on it. And you could do a meet now if you knew that they were working on it, and then you could take that to a whole nother level. So this is just pulling up the PowerPoint. These are all the different slides, and I could edit this right here. So we're changing the model. We're going to the 1051 instead of the 1050. Here's my two-person team. And so here I just have a shared OneNote notebook. And the nice thing about this is if you use OneNote, you can open up this notebook that is pinned to this tab in a team site right in the OneNote application. So you don't have to go to Teams to get to it. So if you're used to just taking notes that way, it makes it really easy. It's just a different workbook that you'd be opening. And so I think I just did I don't know, we had a meeting and we were taking notes, and this can be shared notes. And then I also threw in a tab that had an Excel spreadsheet in it. Pull that real quick and check back if there are any other questions. I know we're getting to our 45-minute mark.
Yeah, I was just about to say, while we're waiting for that to load, I have one question. What someone asked, have you found a good way to archive planner plans so they are out of view without deleting them?
So I've looked into, because Planner isn't a very sophisticated app. It's kind of getting your foot in the door. You can export. So you can go to planner.office.com and access your planner that way. So you could export it to a spreadsheet. That'd be a great way of just having that content. Another option would be if you have that planner associated with a Teams site that you're done with, you could archive the whole site. So if I click on this gear down here, this is another governance thing. So these are my active sites, and down at the bottom here, you can see sites that I've archived. So all the content is still there, still searchable, and it could even be unarchived, but it no longer shows up. It's not a site that's active or hidden. It's archived, and it's in a preserved state. So a couple ways I could see that you could do something like that. Just want to pop back up PowerPoint real quick. We're right at 45 minutes. Just mention, went right by it. So coming up next week, we have this month in cybersecurity. So always interesting things to hear there, what's going on. There's never a lack of content for that. We've kind of been doing questions as we go. Here's our contact information. If there's any more, I certainly can answer them. I don't want to keep people past what we said we would keep them.